The American body is in trouble. Are you lazy or exhausted of trying? Are you unmotivated or simply tired of failing? Are you uneducated? Or have you been really manipulated? I truly believe you might be surprised with the facts that we are going to share with you today. At Resync, safety and healthy is our priority. And today I have a chance to speak with Dietrich Snyder, who serves as our registered dietitian at Resync, I should say, and has contributed with many science-based information with our blogs and many educational pieces we have done, including our webinars on supporting every layer of the body with clean nutrition. But today, we want to make sure you understand that what seems to be clean might not be truly clean. What seems to be all natural may not be so good for you. And even though we are focused on foods today and supplements, we will give you some examples of cosmetics because it all is applicable. What really gets through our skin impacts different layer of our body. What gets through our mouth down to our heart, and to our gut impacts our skin and every layer of the body. So it's all correlated. Cosmetics and what we consume goes hand in hand together. So first, we will start with a term that I truly believe is misleading in every single, I would say, industry, from cosmetics, supplements to foods. And we'll hit it hard. We will start with the all natural. Dietrich, please take over. Tell us what the science tells us, but this is not so scientific. Maybe tell us what the marketing says versus what the reality is.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the introduction, Barbara. And yeah, I mean, I want to dive into the science here, but I really want to keep it understandable and relevant to everybody's lives because, you know, what we're going to find out today is that the term's all natural, the regulation around it, it's not set up in a way that supports your health. You have to be the one who takes that initiative by yourself and really goes the extra mile to really interrogate these claims and figure out, you know, is this actually going to be supportive of my health? So yeah, let's start with all natural. It's a great rule of thumb. And I think that the idea that natural is generally healthier is, you know, that's a great rule of thumb. In most cases, that's going to be a positive yardstick to measure the health of something. But there's so many different ways that this term is manipulated. There's so many different ways that you could interpret the word that I feel like, you know, as a term, it's not that useful. And that's actually confirmed by legislation and regulation around it. Just because a food product or supplement is labeled as natural, that doesn't mean that it has any natural ingredients in it at all. We can take a tip from the regulation around cosmetics as a way to understand what is happening in the food industry world. Prior in the 2010s, there were a couple of lawsuits in the cosmetics industry because there were these products that were labeled as all natural. I mean, I want natural products on my skin just as much as anybody else. And there were some companies that were really using these terms, I would say liberally, but I would rather say abusively, because there was not a single natural ingredient in these products. And there were a number of lawsuits. This caught the attention of the FDA, and the FDA actually, or sorry, not the FDA, but in Congress, the Natural Cosmetics Act was passed in 2020, which promised this huge revolution in the use of the term all natural in cosmetics. But I want to tell you that it's not actually the case. There's a number of loopholes here that are still available for companies to produce products with the label all natural, and now it's regulated, but even then it doesn't serve your health. So to take an example, I'm going to use a definition used in the law itself. The term naturally derived ingredient means any substance where the starting material is of mineral, plant, microbe, or animal origin, but has been chemically processed. Well, then they go on and say the types of processing that are allowed, and I quote the text again: manual, mechanical, naturally derived solvents, and fermentation, saponification, condensation, or esterification. So do any of those sound natural to you?
None of them.
I mean, you're starting with, it doesn't matter what you start with.
Yeah.
If you're subjecting it to these kinds of processes, it's no longer a natural ingredient by my definition, but not by the FDA definition when it comes to cosmetics. So I use this as an example because, you know, I feel like the Cosmetics Act of 2020 helped push cosmetics a little bit ahead of the food industry when it comes to transparent labeling. But even so, when you look at the details, it's actually not all that helpful. So to apply this over to food, we've got a number of lawsuits. It's been a litigious decade, I would say, when it comes to foods and supplements and the use of all natural and how to define these things. But, you know, taking a case law from 2014 as an example, Jones versus Conagra Foods, where a couple of individuals took a lawsuit against this conglomerate that makes Swiss Miss, Hunt's tomato products, and the Pam cooking spray. And they sued for the company having the claims that these products were all natural or 100% natural. And unfortunately for you and I as consumers, the case got dismissed. It was appealed and appealed all the way up to the Ninth Circuit District Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court in the California region, and ultimately it was dismissed on the basis that these claims didn't present any significant harm. Now, I know that, you know, you being in the supplement industry, you know a little bit more about the litigation around that, but I mean, there's just been so much turmoil that I can hope that soon we might get some more legislation passed by Congress along the lines of the Natural Cosmetics Act. But until then, the FDA is not helping any consumers out by not regulating all natural. Anybody can use it. It's a marketing term. It doesn't matter what's in the box at all. And so really consumers have to be investigative reporters themselves. They have to take a look at the ingredients. They have to take a look at the nutrition facts, things like that that are on the back of the label, in order to actually get a handle of whether something labeled as all natural is either A, all natural, actually, or B, healthy at all. Because, I mean, as we know, you know, just because, you know, a hot chocolate has some citric acid in it, you know, that may make it not all natural, but why would somebody be thinking that an all natural version of hot cocoa is any healthier than a not all natural version of hot cocoa? You know, to me, they're both just high in sugar, and whether it's natural or not, it's not going to be supportive of health.
Yes, very good point. And also, Dietrich, we can make it very simple. Nothing that is natural is in a package. Nothing that is natural is in a bag. Nothing that is natural is in a box. It's in packaged goods. Or I would say the package has its consequences. And the major one is nothing in it, even if it's derived from fruit or vegetable, could and should not be labeled as 100% natural. Fruit and vegetables are natural when they're taken from a tree, when they are, you know, taken directly from the ground and are washed and eaten by us. And even then, some would argue, right, that they're not natural because of the way how they were grown. So the term natural, all natural, 100% natural shouldn't be used. And if you are somebody who's watching and listening to us, understand you need to investigate better. We want you to have the right skills and information to make a healthier and better decision on a daily basis. So maybe instead of just superficially looking at the front of the label, as we said, number one, all natural 100% doesn't exist. But even if you want to investigate further, and you should, as we are sharing with you, go to the back of the label, and regardless if it has a supplement facts or nutritional facts, look at all of the ingredients, not just the fats, protein, sugar level, carbohydrates, because there should be, you know, labeled there, regardless if they have any of it or not. But the all ingredients underneath really is what matters and should matter to you. So unless you want to say something else into this, Dietrich, I would say let's go to another, well manipulated or misleading term. What do you think?
I think that sounds great. There's so many examples that we can dive into. I'd love to, make sure that listeners and viewers have the tools they need. So let's go to the next one.
What would you like to approach next? Because there are several that we have prepared for today.
Well, how about you want to talk about kind of these other terms that aren't regulated, things or maybe regulated, but maybe people don't even know about it. Things like let's say like keto approved, or the use of fresh is used all along with all natural, or perhaps whole grain.
So let's go from grain to meat, and from meat to organic, maybe, and all of the fresh and other things that people like to say on the label, okay?
Gotcha.
So let's go from the grain. I think in 2015, I know exactly in 2015, excuse me, let me take it back. In 2015, I took a video on a football field at the Baltimore Ravens, where I spoke to the athletes about not eating cereal for a breakfast or at any point of the day if they want to stay healthy and also be able to generate energy. That's 7 years ago. And we still today are even more misled with the information of how much fiber is in those processed cereal. And parents are buying the processed foods filled with fast carbs that are absorbed and deteriorating the gut of the health. Can we talk about that versus an actually oats that are in a box that you can just really cover with water? And we know that the fiber is outside on the actually oat in itself and has the value that the gut needs for the prebiotics. Can you just address that?
Absolutely. And I love this topic so much because, it's an example where, again, we have a regulated term. You can only use the term whole grain if you, check these boxes by the FDA. And yet, just because something's whole grain doesn't mean it's healthy. And, let's look at what the term whole grain actually means and like why that is a protected term in the first place. So like looking at how a food product is going to be able to use the term whole grain and any sort of claims associated with it, they have to, petition to the USDA. They have to make sure they've got everything, checked off. They've got to make sure they've got everything that the FDA wants them to have. Now, when you look a little bit further back at when this claim was originated, you look at the studies, you look at the papers that were written in support of why whole grain is healthier than more processed foods. And you see, yes, absolutely. Compared to sugar, whole grains are better. Compared to ultra refined grains, whole grains are better. But compared to a balanced, healthy diet with healthy fats, complete proteins, complex carbs, and lots of vegetables, whole grain is actually, from my perspective, and I think you'd agree, more of a detriment to your health than a supportive element. It'll get you one step closer to health if you're, at the bottom of the barrel. But, by choosing a box that says whole grain versus a box that doesn't say whole grain, there's honestly not that big of a difference. And, I wouldn't believe that. I wouldn't believe what I'm saying here if I hadn't looked at the research studies themselves, where they're, in order to say that whole grains are healthy, they, conducted a study where, they gave some people a few tablespoons of sugar and then gave a few people a few tablespoons of whole grains and then compared the difference. So of course, whole grains are better than sugar, but like who is eating that in their milk? I guess there's a lot to be said about the sugar content of cereal, but yeah, I get a little fired up on this just because I feel that the U.S. government has misled or has allowed companies to mislead the consumer by making whole grain a regulated term, the consumer thinks like, oh, this is healthy for me. That's what I think. That's my first take. But I know better because I've seen those studies saying like, if you were to take whole grains and compare it to a high fiber vegetable, say beets or, red leaf lettuce, something like that, you're going to find that the whole grains are actually detrimental to health compared to some of the more healthy things that we have available to us.
I will allow myself bring up a quick few sentences from the Fast Carbs, Slow Carbs, one of my favorite books that I got a hold of during the early COVID times. And the writer, who is actually a former director of FDA, David Kessler, he wrote, "The answer, as it turned out, was right in front of me. After all, when I served as the commissioner of the US Food and Drug Administration, I had helped design the nutritional facts label that appears today on all packaged foods. The label was part of our attempt to educate consumers, to make them aware of what was in their foods so they could make better choices. But what we had missed in designing that label was the danger lurking into the most common ingredient in our food: highly processed and highly absorbable, carbohydrates, or so-called fast carbs, that exactly are part of the whole grain conversation that we are having."
Yeah.
And David made a fantastic, very educated case and point why processed foods are deteriorating our gut health and how processed foods are actually making us addicted to eat more of the foods that we really should be avoiding. So we started our conversation with, are you tired of trying, or are you tired of failing? And I want to make sure people know it's not their fault. We really, in a way, are being set up for a failure. I always like to say, as a performance coach, as a CEO of the company of Resync, it's easy to act as a victim, but it's also not my choice. Instead, I like to take the information that is presented to us, the science, the research that way more educated people than myself share with us, and really do something good with it. And that's what we're doing here. We are sharing that there are better choices people can make and not be misled by really intelligent marketing firms that don't care about what's really inside of the food. As the owner of the company, I hired marketing teams. The stuff they told me to put on our packages looked and sounded good, but I knew I would get in trouble. Just like with all natural 100%, that was there on my packaged goods. I would never allow that to go to print. I would never allow to come out with that, because I understand that's not right. And just because product is made of vegetables and fruits, as we said, even though now we talk about whole grain, it doesn't mean it's all natural. The same with whole grain doesn't mean that the grain didn't go through a process. So we need to also understand that while the grain went through the process took the valuable part of the grain, which in our case would be the fiber, right? So tell me, what would you like to mention about a fiber, or still something about the whole grain?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I am resonating a lot with a lot of the things you're saying here. Like something I tell people all the time, it's not, it may not be your fault that you're in this situation, but it is absolutely your responsibility to get yourself out. We have to take action as informed buyers to educate ourselves on what is actually healthy, what is going to support your gut health, for example, and what's not. I mean, the point you bring up about whole grains is so true. To have the label whole grain is essentially one step removed from ultra processed. Just one more step and it'll be ultra processed. I mean, you look at the fiber difference between say, I don't know, refined white rice and brown rice, the difference is like maybe 2 grams of fiber per serving, whereas you can get, 10 grams, 12 grams of fiber in a serving of vegetables. If you want to talk about fiber and where to get healthy sources that have so many other nutrients along with it, it's going to be your vegetables, your non-starchy green and red leafy vegetables that are going to be supportive of gut health. I mean, and once again, going back to those studies, looking at the effect of sugar on gut health, yeah, it creates a feed forward mechanism where it tells your brain, yeah, we want more carbohydrates. It's an evolutionary mechanism. We're meant to gain weight so that we can, starve it off over the lean months of the winter. So, what are the foods that predispose us to gaining weight? It's the high sugar, the low fiber things that would have been around in abundance during the harvest period of the season. So now, food product companies have engineered these in a way to take advantage of those, evolutionary stimuli. Yeah, if I have been endowed with this ability to gain weight with sugar, which served its purpose many millennia ago, that's going to be the number one thing that a company wants to harness in order to get me to buy more. It always comes down to just, getting more of that product out, getting it into more mouths, and ultimately, nobody's taking responsibility for the adverse effect on health it has. Fiber is the number one thing when it comes to gut health, when it comes to, prevention of colon cancer, when it comes to anti-inflammatory processes in your body. Those non-starchy vegetables are going to be where you go. The difference between whole grain versus refined grain is honestly paltry compared to the difference between a vegetable versus a grain.
So asking the right questions, going from a grains, maybe let's go from the carbohydrates into meats before we'll go into vegetables and organic. So the typical labels we see on meat is maybe hormone free. Let's maybe start with that, unless you want to go into another one.
No, yeah, this is a great place to start. And yeah, I mean, all about, asking the right questions. When we were talking about, looking at all natural, take a look at the back of the box, and for the ingredients, the nutrition facts, the supplement facts, what have you. When it comes to, whole grain, really, does that actually fit into your health? Taking a look at, the fiber content and seeing, is one serving of whole grain with this amount of fiber actually going to be healthy compared to, a serving of vegetables, which provides, 5 times as much fiber. Super healthy for your gut health and stuff like that. So when it comes to, terms that are used on meats, there's a constellation. It's dizzying almost. Grass-fed, grass-finished, pastured, hormone-free, antibiotic-free. There's so many different ones. And so let's start with hormone-free. Starting from first principles, there isn't a meat out there, there isn't a dairy product out there that is actually free of hormones. We have hormones in our body that are running around. Any animal is going to have hormones in their body. And so if you eat animal products, there's going to be some amount of naturally occurring hormones. Now, the issue arises when producers inject their livestock with hormones to make them grow faster or to make them produce more milk. That the added hormone is where the real concern comes into here. And so the USDA does regulate the term no added hormones or not treated with hormones. You'll see that on milk with milk made from cows not treated with RBST, or there's another way that they say the RBST, depending on where you are in the region. But ultimately, you want to be looking for those labels with the no added hormone label there, because I mean, it's regulated, and the regulations here actually do serve consumers where that animal is not allowed to have ever been exposed or treated with any sort of recombinant or synthetic hormone. It's just not allowed. Now to clarify, there are some industries where there's no hormones ever allowed. in the pork industry, in the poultry industry, hormones can't be used. And so you'll see a lot of products with the hormone-free label on the chicken when chicken actually is legally required to be, no added hormones. And so there's a little bit of game playing when it comes to advertising and marketing there, but generally speaking, hormone-free or not treated with added hormones is a positive one that you want to be looking out for your health.
So I think people may not know that actually, Dietrich, that you're saying that only beef actually is or can be treated with hormones. Poultry and pork, not allowed.
Yeah, not allowed. And bison is specifically included. So yeah, it's really important to look for the no added hormones label on a package of beef. But honestly, this is just one step. Like, yeah, we're not treating with growth hormones or steroids to fatten these animals up, but there's still a lot more steps that we can look at. And I think that's where we're going when we get into grass-fed and pastured, pasture-raised things. So let's go into there next. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, because that's a fantastic point to start with. But once you pass it, what's next that you really need to pay attention on the label?
Right. Yeah. And I think if you're going for the best quality meat, the most free of unnatural ingredients or processing, looking for pasture-raised meat. So let's get there. Let's set it up here. Hormone free is kind of on the bottom here. That's one step in the right direction when it comes to beef. Now, the next step, kind of mid-level quality not certification, but a term you might see on a package, it's grass-fed. We see that all the time, grass-fed beef. And this is a really good label, I think. It kind of strikes a balance between the highest quality meat, the one that's most serving of your health, and then the lowest quality meat, which really might not be serving your health at all. Grass-fed is right in the middle. It's a lot better than all natural, that's for sure. Because grass-fed is a regulated term. It means that most of the animal's life has been spent eating grass, and they may still have had supplemental feed to make those animals gain weight, especially fat, later in life. So ultimately, grass-fed means that, for the first 6 months, the animal is just drinking milk. Then from maybe 6 months to 2 years, they're just eating grass. And then this is kind of where the regulation falls apart. Later in life, the last 6 to 8 months, common practice is to feed animals corn and these refined processed grains that make them gain weight in the last 8 months of their life. And so grass-fed does not include grass feeding in the last bit of life. And so you're still going to find really high fat content on grass-fed beef, but it'll still have a few of them. Grass-fed beef has, some more antioxidants. It has some more of the omega-3 fatty acids. There's some, you look at the fat on grass-fed meat and it's a little bit yellow, and that's because of the micronutrients in the grass that they're eating. When you look at corn-fed beef that's just been fed corn its whole life, you don't see that. The fat is white because there's no nutrients in it. There's no antioxidants in it. So, a lot of times people say, eat your colorful vegetables. Well, when it comes to meat, the same thing applies. If there's a tinge of yellow in the fat, that means that there's carotenoids, these antioxidants that come from grass in it.
That's very valuable. I don't think a lot of people knew that. Sometimes yellow color on a meat may be associated by people who never heard what you just shared with maybe getting old.
Totally. Yeah, common misconception. And it actually, grass-fed meat lasts longer because of the antioxidants. So, grass-fed is kind of middle of the line, but what I would love to see people shooting for is pastured, grass-finished, or pasture-raised. All of these three terms mean the same thing. So grass-finished, pastured, and pasture-raised all mean the same thing. They're regulated under the same line in FDA law. And this means that the entire animal's life has been spent eating grass and foods that would have been naturally available to it. So this includes open space, open range, And it excludes that last 8 months where manufacturers, intentionally feed cows and other livestock grains in order to fatten them up. When you see pasture raised, you know that that animal was never intentionally fattened. There's a lot of ethical reasons to object to that practice, but from a health standpoint as well, pasture finished or grass finished beef has the highest level of antioxidants, the highest level of phytonutrients, a very favorable fatty acid profile, so less saturated fat and more of the unsaturated fats like omega-3s, things like that. So whenever I can, I encourage people to choose grass finish over any other. Grass fed is a step in the right direction, and at the very least, choose something that says hormone free.
Yeah, for sure, with anything that we do. So we can probably mention, if somebody is just starting to watch right now, we've already addressed what all natural means or should mean to all of us in a cosmetics, in a supplements, in a foods, and the same is with food, specifically meats. There was no such a thing as all natural. Would you agree?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so now let's go into maybe one of my favorite, organic, made with organic, ingredients. And we also know that, there is a tricky way of telling people, oh, since this is an organic sugar, this is good for you. Or in many ways that organic is being thrown loosely. And when people see that word organic, they truly believe it's the best thing that they can consume into their body. And also, I truly want to emphasize, just because it's not organic, that doesn't mean it's bad for you.
Oh yeah, 100%, absolutely. So yeah, organic, I think, on the one hand, it's a certification process. It's based on these rigorous standards. It's a rigorous process in order to get certified organic. But on the other hand, just like with all natural, just because it says organic doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because it says all natural doesn't mean it's healthy at all. So again, people have to do the legwork themselves, and organic, seeing a product that says organic on the front is a very favorable thing. But then to confirm, like, this is just step 1 of 2. First step, organic, check. Next step, what do the nutrition facts actually say? Are we talking about organic cane syrup? Like, is that actually, on the macro level going to be better for your health than refined cane sugar? There are maybe, some arguments to be made by many people far smarter than me, but ultimately, when it comes to health, those calories from sugar are still calories from sugar. Regardless, they're not going to be supportive of your health. So to think about how to approach this, I first want to point out that organic means, if it has the certified organic label, that means that 95% of the ingredients have to be certified organic. If
I think
the label
says actually 96 or even 98, okay, because I looked into it for supplements as well.
Oh, thank you for correcting me. Yeah,
it's slightly a higher even number.
That's
and it's
great.
Different in Europe than it's in US, so every even country, not a continent in itself, may have a different regulations when it comes to that, but let's stick to US. 96.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and to my knowledge, unless things have been updated, if it says made with organic ingredients, that should mean that it has at least 70% of its ingredients are organic. So the rigorous standards that these are based on, they're different depending whether it's plant, whether it's dairy, whether it's meat. And essentially the common denominator here is that that product had to have been in an environment that was free from synthetic pesticides for 3 or more years. Now, there's a lot of other boxes that people have to check, especially for organic meat, where I think the label is really positive. You pair the organic meat plus grass finished meat, and you've basically got, you know, one of the most actually natural products you could imagine. But taking, you know, specific examples, you know, as to whether organic is going to be serving your health or not, you know, let's dive into a little bit of the weeds. I don't want to get too technical here, but I think it's really important that people understand that just because something is labeled organic and says free from synthetic pesticides, that doesn't mean that it is actually free of all pesticides, because there are a number of natural pesticides that are permitted for use in organic farms. So things like neem oil or plant-derived pesticides, say from the lavender plant. You know, these are natural ingredients, but they can have a negative impact on human health. Just because it's a plant-derived insecticide doesn't mean that it's not going to have a negative impact on your health as a human being as well, especially if it's in high doses. So, you know, it's really important. Like, yes, I don't want any synthetic pesticides in my food. Like, that is number one. But then going a little bit deeper and trying to figure out, where is this organic produce produced from? You know, was that farm one that was using really regenerative practices without the use of pesticides at all? Or were they kind of using the FDA guidance here and using natural pesticides, even in the absence of synthetic ones? You know, that's going to be a decision that every consumer has to weigh the risks and benefits for themselves. But I would just have to say that, you know, going even more than just organic, going hyper local, going to your local farm, if, you know, that's something that is available, or trying to learn a little bit more about where your food comes from, that can go a lot further. Because, you know, another thing I want to point out is that, you know, organic certification is an expensive process, and some of the smallest, most sustainable farms just don't have the capital to produce the organic certification. And so there might be products that aren't labeled organic at your local farmers market or your local market that that might actually be even more healthy, or even more rigorously controlled for the natural components of how that food was made, than something that's labeled organic. So that's just the synthetic pesticides issue. You know, there's other reasons to eat organic. They tend to have more antioxidants, more phytonutrients. They tend to not have any more micronutrients. That it's a common misnomer in online and in the media. The reason why organic produce technically has more micronutrients, or nutrients in general, is just because organic ingredients tend to be smaller. You know, you take an organic apple versus a conventionally raised apple. They've got the same amount of nutrients. It's just that they're spread out in more volume in the conventional apple, whereas they're concentrated nutrients in the smaller apple. But then for other aspects of health, like, it really doesn't matter. Like, if you're going to eat organic sugar, if you're going to eat an organic boxed food that's in plastic packaging, it's still not going to be conducive for your health. You know, we've got to get people away from just looking at these buzzwords on the top: organic, all natural, you know, things like that, and really weigh it for yourself. Does this fit into a healthy diet? Organic is not a guide to that. It's a guide to how that product was produced. It has no bearing on whether that product is healthy or not.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point, Dietrich, because even in a supplement industry, and I like to educate especially athletes that are consuming our products on the difference of Riesling versus other ingredients. And it's a, you know, apple could be just a simple and a very good example. Apple in itself has fiber. Apple in itself, yes, has sugar. Apple in itself has antioxidants. Now, you take that apple and you make an apple juice out of it. You got rid of the fiber, and now you have sugar, and maybe there are additional valuable vitamins in it. Maybe. Now, from the juice, companies make a powder juice or juice powder. Now you process that even further. Anything juice powder or made of juice is more processed and less nutritionally valuable. Now you go from an apple and you just make a powder out of that. Potentially, again, there might be all of the nutrients that, most of the nutrients that the apple may have. Most likely the fiber has been degraded, right? It's a process. We agreed that any fruit, any vegetable that is processed, it's not natural, it's not all natural, it's not 100% natural. Now, you go from the apple, and now just like Resync does, we make extracts of vegetables and fruits, but the extracts are made for specific purpose, right? Either antioxidants, in our case of maybe aronia. So when you consume that extract, yes, as a consumer, you should be aware that the extract from an apple wouldn't, if it's standardized for antioxidants, that apple extract is only tested for that purpose. That doesn't mean that the extract has a fiber. That doesn't mean that the extract has all the vitamins that the apple has initially in a natural form. That is very important. So when it comes to extracts, they are the most powerful naturally, or excuse me, nutritionally, especially if they are standardized to some number of what is valuable to the human body. But if it's just a powder, or it's a juice, or a powder of juice, there is very little value in it. That's very important to keep in mind when it comes to foods, packaged foods. Just because it's made of an apple, that doesn't mean necessarily it has a lot of nutritional value.
100%, Barbara, couldn't say it better myself. And I would encourage any viewers who are interested in this content, we've been writing on these topics for quite a while.
Yes.
We've been really trying to put out good evidence-based information to help consumers understand and navigate this landscape. So, when you're talking about all these different names for apple juice, apple concentrate, apple extract.
Yes.
If you're interested in, say, all of the different names of sugar that come on your package, there are 20 different names that most people can't even pronounce, let alone recognize in the ingredients label. So if they see 100% organic on the front, all natural, whole grain, and it has some of these sneaky sugar ingredients that are, they're naturally derived, they're organically derived, but honestly, they concentrate the sugar and they don't serve your health, whether that's your cardiovascular health, your gut health, joint health. I mean, there's so many connections with these processed foods and disease that, I encourage people to take a look at the resources available at Resync if they want to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you mentioning this, because that is that is a true fact. We have been investigating, we have been transparently sharing, educating, really making sure that people make a better decisions for them every day. We're not here to bash any company that came out with any product. As a CEO, I value anyone who put the time. What I don't appreciate is misleading people with labels that are untruthful. And that's where we come, excuse me, that's where we came in today to really share the biggest buzzwords in the industry, right? So what would you say is still valuable for us to go over, Dietrich?
Well, I would say kind of wrapping it up and kind of giving people some concrete takeaways that they can use in the absence of FDA, guidance. We live in this environment that's not conducive to health. So let's help consumers, think through what you need to do in order to make sure you're actually buying a product that serves your health. So I'd say number one, and I think you'd agree with this, read the nutrition label. If it's a supplement facts label, a nutrition facts label, taking a look at the macronutrients, yes, the fat, the types of fat, the types of carbs, whether those are fiber or whether that's sugar. There's an obvious difference when it comes to health between those two. And then looking at the protein content too, because that's one of those ingredients that gets stripped out of a lot of processed foods.
Yes.
Then taking a look at the micronutrients, taking a look at how much sodium is this? Is that more than 300 grams of sodium? If so, unless it's for a performance day supplement kind of pre-workout mix, you know, it's probably not warranted to have that high level of sodium. It triggers these systems in your brain to just want more. And honestly, that combination of saturated fat, sugar, and salt is just the trifecta for making you just want to eat more and more. The food industry has engineered these products to take advantage of you. They are truly meant to harness your evolutionary biology to make you get fatter, to make you get unhealthy, and to make you buy more, to make you consume more. It's all part of the same cycle. So first, most important thing, read the nutrition label. Second one, I would say backed by a rigorous certification. You know, we've talked about this with supplements over and over again. You know, it's so important that supplements are certified by a third party for quality, consistency, efficacy, because ultimately those are things that aren't regulated by the FDA. There are many things that are in the supplement industry, but that's not one of them. But when we're going over into the food space, you know, whether that label is actually backed by a certification, you know, for example, USDA certified organic is backed by rigorous standards of organic. You know, that doesn't mean it's healthy, but it does mean that you know what to expect when you're consuming that product. Now, when it comes to the term all natural, it's a marketing term. There's no regulation around it in the food industry. That term is not certified. So, you know, taking a look for you know, some of the other ones that we mentioned are grass-fed is a certification, pasture-raised or grass-finished, both of those mean the same thing, those are certified. Hormone-free is one, although it doesn't, it's you know, one step up in the right direction. It doesn't mean much, but it does mean something. And then, you know, whole grain. That's another example of a certified term. You can only use it if it is using if that product's using a whole grain in it. However, you know, going back to rule number one, just because it's whole grain and certified so doesn't make it healthy. Read the nutrition facts and determine for yourself whether that's going to be, you know, a healthy food decision.
Yeah, 100% I agree. There are certifications that we've mentioned, some of them today on the video. There are many more certifications we've mentioned in our blogs. There are also, you know, different certifications we also mentioned for supplement purposes in our educational online classes. There is one I highly suggest everyone who is interested to support the body with the main protein collagen. There is a buzzword, you know, in the industry of cosmetics, foods, and supplements. Highly invite you to view that class. It's free of charge, very valuable, with everything you need to know about collagen, what it takes to actually make collagen in your body, what's involved, what other nutrients you must have in order to benefit from any product you might be consuming. So there are tricks that companies will use for you to buy. Like I mentioned previously, I will allow myself to repeat the same statement once again. I don't want to act as a victim. I want to take the information that was given me and I want to embrace it and educate myself and share with you as the consumer to help you live a healthier life. That's what we are doing here. As a CEO of a company, I didn't know many things going into supplement and I have to learn my own hard way, the hard way. And that's why our products are certified by third party. They are consumed by professional athletes. They are verified for a lot of things. All of the things that are actually on the label, you know that they are inside of the product. Now, we also share that just because product is certified by a third party, regardless if it's NSF, regardless if it's BSCG or Informed Sport, that doesn't mean that the product has all healthy ingredients. And that's on you again of what Dietrich you shared previously, to investigate and read all of the ingredients so you know that any additives that have been added might not be something you want to consume, regardless if it's organic, if it's certified by any third party, or whatever it might be. You got to act like the best investigator with it. And it's unfortunate because we would think that whatever we consume, the FDA and third parties would want to stand behind us and say, you know what, let's not allow this to come on the shelf. Let's not allow this to go through and consumed and digested by a human body because it will have adverse effects. We need to be smarter. We need to be better at reading labels. We need to be better at asking questions. We just need to be better on staying on top of things of this nature that really matter to our health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I would double click on the word that you used over and over there, need, because there is no choice here. We live in the US and abroad in an environment that is not conducive to your health, whether it's the way terms are regulated, whether it's the way ingredients are processed, whether it's the way things are packaged and advertised. At every turn, people are operating against your best interests. And so it is imperative. People must be willing to do the extra work to read those nutrition facts and to look for, hidden sugars, or take stock of the product they're looking at. Is this just like a white grain? Is this a fast carb that's just going to spike your blood sugar, send you plummeting later, cause inflammatory gut issues? Or is this something that is going to, truly holistically serve your entire health? It's something that you need to do. And I'm not one to, tell people what to do. But if you're interested in your health, it's on you to take responsibility for that.
It really is responsibility. I know that a lot of people don't like to take the responsibility and they put it on the companies. This is not the place to do it, unfortunately, just because of the government not regulating things and companies taking advantage of exactly that reason. So you are buying more, you are eating more, you are overeating your emotions, you are overeating your problems, you are overeating something that you think might be satisfying your body with protein and healthy carbohydrates, and it's really a processed food filled with fast carbs that are really deteriorating every layer of your body. I truly believe, as we started this entire presentation, we've made a statement that the American body is a danger. Yes, It doesn't need to be. I think we have the opportunity and we have the possibility to do a better job at what we put inside of our body. And if anyone has any questions of what we shared, because there's a lot of information here, I invite you, as always, to comment, to send us an email. We will make sure that we get back to you at the earliest convenience. We always do. There was not one case when someone has a question on any content we have created and put out there that we didn't want to address. If we don't know, we will research. If we don't know, we will ask those who do know, but most of the time, we do know. If we are speaking about some subject, we've done the research and we have the answer. So maybe we didn't cover it and you would like to ask the question, do not hesitate. We are here to help you. We are here to address your concerns. We are here to really make sure you live a healthier life. Dietrich, I want to thank you for your time today. As always, fantastic time sharing, good, easy conversation, I truly believe. We can continue this way. We look forward to your guidance. What else you would like us to address? What else really interests you? What else you think would be valuable to talk about? So looking forward to that, looking forward to serving you. And thank you again for your time and attention today.